Hi guys, Josh here, your Amazon optimization guru, and welcome to my channel where we talk about all things related to optimizing and increasing your sales on Amazon. If you're looking for a more personalized approach, I do offer one-on-one consulting, and you can get in touch by clicking on the link in the description below. So today I wanted to go a little bit more specifically into a particular advertising campaign type. Now, if you want a more holistic overview of everything, you can watch my video that details all of the types and where I think each one fits into the whole equation of scaling your products and increasing your sales on Amazon. So today we're going to focus on the sponsored products campaign type, and you'll notice if you go to your menu bar in Seller Central and then click on Advertising and Campaign Manager, you'll see three options here for campaigns. And today we're going to go and take a little bit more of a deeper dive into sponsored products. If you watched my previous video, which details them all holistically, you'll get a better idea of how that ad looks and where it appears within the search results as well as within individual listings. So today we're going to go ahead and click on the continue in sponsored products, and you can name your campaign anything you want. Amazon will give you a detailed naming convention. I like to use the ad type name, so sponsored products dash the targeting type dash the product type and then dash the date, just to give a good reference in terms of what specifically the campaign is without actually having to click into it and look at the details. So for this sponsored products campaign, we're going to focus on something that I recommended in the holistic video, which is to use keyword targeting. And this is going to be the driver of most of your sales within Amazon ads. These tend to perform very well. They're something that most brands leverage more frequently than any other campaign type. And I definitely recommend. The one thing I will caution is just be very careful about what you're targeting and your bids. I do have a more specific video that goes into Helium 10 and how you can do keyword research and insert them into this campaign. So you can check that out if you're looking for more specific details there. So we're going to pick a product first, and I'd recommend starting with the products that perform the best. So if you have a specific ASIN that makes a good amount of the sales or a majority of the sales relative to your other products, I definitely recommend starting there. Start with your strongest offerings, the ones that convert the best, the ones that you make the most money off, because that's going to be where your best bet to scale is. So in this case, let's just assume this product here is our best performing. So I will add it into the site. You can also enter it or search the ASIN or put a list in there of the ASINs, which might be easier if you want to include multiple products. For each campaign type, I'd recommend just keeping it to a specific product type. So in this case, we have protein powder. I wouldn't recommend that you mix in other different types of products into it, and you'll see why as we get a little bit lower down the list here. So the next section is targeting. Now, I did recommend in my previous video that you should try and set up one campaign for automatic targeting. This is great to actually keep running for, let's say, more extended periods of time, so it gathers specific keywords, and then you get a chance to pull the reporting and analyze those keywords and pick out the ones that are best performing. So I would think of it more of like a discovery campaign. If you're really not sure what's going to perform, this is a good way to kind of figure that out by throwing some money into a bunch of terms that Amazon determines that it should be targeted towards. I will caution, this is obviously not going to be a super high performing campaign to any degree. I think really where you get the performance is where you're able to whittle down the terms to the highest performers and manually target those. So in this case, I'm going to select the manual targeting. And what you can do here is you can either do keywords or you can do product specific. So you could try competitor products, you could try categories, you could try other brands. I wouldn't recommend the product targeting, at least when starting out. And the reason being is that that will tend to perform lower than specific keyword targeting, where you can really hone in on what your customer may be searching for. So in this case, we're going to select keyword targeting, and we'll go down, and it's actually going to give us a lot of recommended keywords, which is what I like. So you can think about pulling from this list. Again, check out the Helium 10 video, because you're going to get some more and better data, in my opinion, from using that platform and importing it into here. But if you don't want to pay for Helium 10, or you just don't have access to that tool, then what you can do is you can start going down the list. And I would suggest picking ones with a lower suggested bid to start, something that's more long tail but very specific to your product. Just make sure that it does actually match your products. For example, here you have amino acid powder. It's a little bit more long tail. I like the idea that I can more easily build the ranking off of that. However, this is a protein powder, and it's certainly not an amino acid. So you can see where Google, or should I say Amazon, is not accurate in terms of what they're suggesting. But if you manually go through the list, you can see that some match better than others. Vegan vanilla protein is a great example, because that's exactly what this product is. So if I'm going to select that term, what I want to do is I want to start out with an exact match. And the reason I want to do this is because once you start to go to phrase or broad, it starts to serve outside of those parameters, and it could be vegan vanilla protein, 0 sugar, for example. And if your product has sugar in it, it's not going to match, and that's not going to be a very highly converting keyword. So I would recommend starting everything with exact. And if you really feel like you're having issues scaling later on, then I would expand it out to phrase. I would never generally recommend broad targeted, but if you can find an instance where it works for you, then that's fine. But I would keep it to now, for now, as exact. So I've added this exact term. That's a suggested bid level. You can go down if you want to see if you can maximize and squeeze some money out of it at a lower cost. You can try to go to like the bottom end of the spectrum here, which is suggested at 165, just to start out. And then if you see a particular keyword performing well, it's probably worth increasing the bid to get better positioning within the ad itself. So again, you'll be looking at negative keyword targeting. You could make sure that you have a list of this, of ones that didn't perform. And then eventually you'll be able to upload these. You can also get that from the automatic campaign. Generally, when you're doing exact, you're probably not going to get a lot of keywords that you wouldn't want to serve for, given that you're picking them out. But for phrase match and broad match, do make sure that you have a list, or you started to build one, and then add to it over time. Look at the reports. If you see that you're spending more than, for example, $100 to $200 on a keyword, you've got a good number of clicks, and you've seen no conversions, then I would certainly recommend putting that in the negative keyword category. Again, it's all based on your tolerance, what type of product you have, what kind of price point it is. But I think in order to get a significant sample size, you should look at something that may be 100 clicks to determine if it's going to perform well or not. Again, if you have a more expensive product, that may be more than that. Cheaper products would obviously be less. And again, just make sure you're keeping an eye on your overall profitability. If you're not making a good margin, you don't have the margins to support a 20% ad spend relative to your monthly revenue generation, then I'd recommend that you scale that back. If you could only support 5%, for example, and keep it at 5%, but don't get to a point where you're spending more than you're actually making. And, obviously it doesn't make sense to do. So I would say that as just a general piece of advice. Looking at the campaign bidding strategy, I would keep the dynamic bids up and down personally, and this will do it based on a percentage. So in this case, it could go down by 100% of the cost or up. This will help make it more likely that you convert. You can start at fixed bids if you want, and this way you'll get a good idea of, okay, I'm using the lowest denominator, the lowest amount. So in this case, 165. And I'm going to see how that performs. I'm not going to go 100% above or below it. Just going to get a good idea. And once you have a good idea of the performance and say, okay, this is making 2x return on ad spend, then I think I'm comfortable with maybe making the bids dynamic so that I can see if I can increase that performance. But it's always going to be, okay, adjust, test, review the data, and then adjust again and continue the same process. At the bottom here, you'll see the campaign name. Again, you can match it the same as I recommended above, and the start and the end date. I'd run generally things for, say, a month's time, and just make sure that you keep an eye on it and you don't forget that it's actually running. The daily budget, of course, is something that you may feel comfortable with. If your product converts at a rate of 2%, then you're looking at potentially needing to get 50 clicks to your product in ads to get a sale. So if you're looking for a sale a day, for example, then you have to think about, okay, how much is it going to cost me to get 50 clicks? $1.65 per click by 50. And that's generally what you'd have to spend a day to get a sale. Ideally, you want to bring that number down, of course, but just give yourself an idea. Give yourself a budget and make sure to cut yourself off if something's not performing, because more often than not, you're going to see a lot of things that don't necessarily perform. So just make sure that you have, say, 5% that's just allocated to testing, 5 or 10%, and you're not going to be upset about losing that. But the more data you get, the better performance you'll gain over time. So I would definitely recommend that. Another side of it is if your brand is big enough, you can create a separate campaign, and we'll call it branded. This one will be targeting non-branded terms, and then you'll have one that's targeting branded. If you have that recognition, and if you feel like other competitors are bidding on your branded terms and crowding you out and stealing potential customers, then it's a good idea to have a campaign centered around that as well, based off a similar premise as this. So that's what I would say in terms of getting started with your sponsored campaigns. Again, I think this is the best bet in terms of performance, but we will make sure to review the other campaign types, and you'll be able to look at the videos on my channel for those as well. And until then, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to get access to more of this great content. And until next time, take care.